So something that is spoken about in Destiny is embracing the worst of yourself. And a lot of people misunderstand that concept. It's not about focusing on what awful people we are, how the world is such a terrible place, how everything is going to shit and we should all just die. That's absolutely not what it's about. It's about recognizing that within each and every one of us, there are things that are awful and things that are fantastic. That we are not just black and white. Things are not that simple. It's not just good or bad people. Every one of us has parts of ourselves that we'd like to change. Every one of us has a part or has many parts that contribute to the worst things that happen in the world, or at least support it in a way, whether it's an acceptance of it or a participation in it actively. So embracing the worst of ourselves means recognizing, being willing to look at those parts of us that are dark, that are terrible, that are sometimes nasty and evil even, and within that reflection, that self-reflection, understand how we live those things in our lives. And through that understanding, we empower ourselves to more easily change those things, to stop participating in those worst parts of us, to stop going to those dark places, and to start scripting, to start creating a new response, a new way of participating within ourselves and within our lives. So let's take an easy example that most people probably relate to. Having nasty thoughts about other people. Like, let's say it's judgments or opinions or things that you think that you would never, ever say out loud to anyone, ever. And you know that it's kind of a nasty thing to think inside of you, but you do it anyway because you know it's secret, no one's going to ever find out. It's okay. You know, sorry, the wind is joining in on the video. So it doesn't matter if I'm thinking these things because no one's ever going to know. I'm not hurting anyone by having these opinions, by having these thoughts. Now, the one aspect is that having these kinds of thoughts within us that we feel are secret, that we think that they don't have an effect on the world, they do actually have an effect. They do actually form a part of how we participate in, how we accept the world around us, how we will live in our lives, which flows out and affects everything that is a part of our lives. So if I'm having nasty thoughts about people and I'm thinking that it's okay to have these thoughts, that I don't need to change it, that as long as it's secret and no one ever finds out, then it's okay because I'm entitled to have my opinions about things, even if they're a little bit cruel or nasty. Now, what that will create within my living is that I will, because I want to accept these things happening in myself, I'm going to be more willing to accept that other people just are who they are, that they are going to have the opinions that they have, and they're entitled to their opinions, and I don't need to question it, I don't need to get involved, I don't need to stand up for someone who is being abused by other people because those people are entitled to their opinions. And here I'm not talking about physical abuse, I'm talking about this would come through more in like an emotional kind of abuse, like how people talk to each other. Now, obviously this is not always the case, this is not always how things turn out. This is just one example. I could probably list millions, but I'm not going to. So bear with me. Okay, so it changes how we participate in the world and what we accept in other people, because we want to be able to feel okay with whatever we're thinking about. So we'll allow things within other people. And within that whole dynamic, you've got this effect where a lot of people give a lot of rope to each other. Like, we allow a lot of behavior that actually really shouldn't. It's not nice, it's not pleasant for anyone. It's like we allow this nastiness to be there because we want to let our own worst parts stay. We don't want to have to deal with those things. We don't want to have to face the true nature of what it is that we've actually been participating in within ourselves. And so that's the one aspect of how what we think and what we feel will shape and mold our behavior in our lives, which then contributes to, because everyone is doing it, that is the norm, that is how everything functions, that is why things that are unacceptable are so easily accepted. They just, because we're saying it's just the way that it is, I'm just going to leave it like that. Things like that starts off with something as small as a thought, as small as an experience within ourselves. And that's how much it can ripple out, because we are the ones who are shaping the world. So how we are living, how we are seeing things, how we are thinking is what determines how we live. And how we live is what determines the nature of life on Earth, because we are the dominant species. We are the ones who determine what most other life forms' lives will be like. Alright, so within embracing the worst of ourselves, we recognize that, okay, I'm having these nasty thoughts. Is this something that I want to be thinking? No. Alright. Now, the process of self-honesty here is seeing, what have I been living? What have I been thinking? What have I been doing? What has been driving my behavior, my words, my thoughts? And being willing to really get to the root of it, to see, okay, where is all of this coming from? Why am I having these nasty thoughts? What is this showing me about me? That is part of the process of self-honesty. It's that point of self-reflection and self-investigation, of looking within to see, how have I created myself? Taking apart the pieces to find out how we work. And within seeing those motivations, those driving forces behind our behavior, we can correct them by understanding ourselves more. So once we realize, okay, I've actually been judging myself, or I actually have been feeling inferior within myself, and I'm trying to make up for it by putting other people down, then, okay, why am I feeling inferior about myself? Where does this come from? Understanding those source points, we can forgive them, we can let them go. And within that forgiveness and that letting go, we are releasing the power that they can have over us. And that forgiveness is not as simple as just saying, making the choice to let go. It's an active, daily, every moment action of, whenever the feeling of inferiority, whenever that feeling of whatever it is that you're dealing with comes up inside of yourself, instead of holding and staying there and going further down the rabbit hole, you let go. It's like in that moment, it's an act of forgiveness, an act of release, an act of breathing it out, letting it go. And there are different ways that work for different people in order to do that. So that is one way to do it. It doesn't necessarily mean that it will always work for you in all points. There are some points that might be more difficult, some points that might be easier. And so following that process of self-reflection, of self-honesty, of looking at, of understanding ourselves, comes the process of self-creation, of, okay, I don't want to live that way. I've seen the worst of me. I understand how I can change it. What am I going to change it to? What am I going to live? What words am I going to create within myself to live instead of that nasty word that has been creating so much ugliness within me? What can I practically start creating? So instead of having lived the word judgment, we can practice living the word understanding. Instead of inferiority and superiority, we can live the word equality. And within equality is an inherent, the inherent requirement is understanding, is that consideration of others, is of that recognition of seeing that we are all from the same life source, life force, that is our equality, that we are all here, an expression of that life. Instead of living the word impatience, we can practice living the word patience. And so we actually create ourselves within the words that we choose to live instead of what we have been living, that has been creating so much ugliness, not only within ourselves, but the ugliness that we will allow in the world, that we will just accept, that we will say it's just the way that things are. And to each his own, and that's how they choose to live. And I know that that's maybe another topic in itself, of where is the line between accepting another person's behavior and not, but I'm not going to go there for now. So that process of self-creation, if living words is something that you'd like to learn more about, then there is a project that is one of the sister projects of Destiny, or maybe you could call one of the creations of Destiny, which is called the School of Ultimate Living, which focuses on living words. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it here for now. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please leave a comment or message me. If you'd like to support me, you can do so on Patreon. The link is below. I'll see you next time.